Hi, Peter Boyles. Of course, now I do the Saturday morning show here on 710 KNUS, and we've called this series on YouTube, we've dubbed it The Shoot. Comes from professional wrestling, where pro wrestlers, when it was real, they called it a shoot. The rest of the time it was a work. And we've been off for about 3 or 4 weeks, and this is a great one to come back with. We're going to talk about Republican politics. We're going to talk about a number of different things, but focusing on Douglas County. And if I ever could say to myself, I watched a young person grow in this business, it certainly is Priscilla. Priscilla Rahn, of course, everyone knows you were on the radio show with me all the time, and full in transparency, as they say. We have lunch together, she and her husband and I, and she's now running for Douglas County Commissioner. But she was also so much involved in Republican politics in the state of Colorado in a tough year. Also, on my right, and he's one of those guys also, Sheriff Darren Weekly. He's now the Douglas County Sheriff and replaced Tony Spurlock. There's a lot of political upheaval around Spurlock and now, of course, Douglas County. But the thing that's important, at least in my world, is these are two young people in the sea of Democratic or a tsunami of Democrats, that they're both Republicans. They're both involved so much in politics, but they both, well, in the case of the sheriff won, and it was an uphill fight.
Absolutely.
First of all, welcome everybody, and thanks for coming in. It's good to see everybody again. I want to begin with that because in Colorado, and I know some of the other sheriffs in some of those elections, and Jeff Schrader's a dear friend, and I watched what happened, and you would think that 15 years ago, 20 years ago, Douglas County would have been a lock. So, what happened?
It was a battle from the word go. Being the internal candidate, because I've been with the sheriff's office at the time, I had been there for 28 years. I've been in every area of that office at almost every rank. I've worked on every special team. I knew I was qualified for the job, but the former sheriff, Tony Spurlock's tenure, he made a lot of decisions that I'll just say the Republican Party didn't like. And that's probably putting it mildly, with red flag and some internal issues that were going on. And Tony is my friend. But this wasn't like previous sheriffs where you were the internal candidate. It was kind of a given in a Republican county that you were just going to get it as long as you got the nod, so to speak, to be the next sheriff. I didn't have that luxury. I had an uphill battle from the word go. I earned every bit of this. It was a knockdown, drag-out primary. But I'll tell you, I stayed positive during the entire primary, and I just told people, I went door to door, telling people what my qualifications are, what my vision for the sheriff's office was, and I won my primary and I won my general. I truly believe that citizens just want to hear the positive. They want to hear what you're going to do. And once you start turning negative, that turns the average citizen off. They don't want to hear it. They're tired of the politics. Yeah. They're tired of hearing about it. What are you going to do? If you get in this job, what are you going to do for me? What are you going to do for my community? And that's how I won.
I was listening to a lot of inside that campaign, and everyone thought, well, what's going to happen next? And I don't think you surprised anybody by winning, but I know that was a fight.
It was. I personally knocked on over 4,000 doors. My team knocked on over 10,000. So going door to door, hitting Republicans, hitting unaffiliated homes, and just getting my name out there and having them meet me. If they meet the candidate, even if you're talking into a Ring doorbell, if you cared enough to stop by their house, drop off a brochure, and talk to their doorbell, they're likely to vote for you. It's just, you got to put in the work. And when Priscilla and I had been talking before she announced, she came to me and asked for a little guidance, and I told her you're gonna lose about a year and a half of your life, no question, and that's how you got to win.
I love this young woman, and I've watched her grow, like I said. And she was vice chair of the Titanic, also known as the Republican Party of the state of Colorado. I mean, wow. and we talked about it, and you said, now Douglas County Commissioner. So, but be retrospective. When did you come into politics? Why? And I know the story, and then explain what happened.
Well, I can go back to 2019. I'm a full-time teacher. I was very involved in the teachers union at the time. But I've been a Republican, a conservative my entire life. And I just started
Talk about your background, because...
Well, my father is a Army veteran. He served our great nation for 30 years. I'm really proud to be the daughter of a Army veteran. He's a Vietnam War vet, and he's a hero. My mother is a Korean immigrant. She survived the Korean War. She was 12 when the war started. And so my mom and dad have been married for over 55 years, still married and retired at Fort Hood, Texas. And they're just a great, amazing parents. My dad's been conservative, Christian. He's the one who taught me how to love my country and stand for the pledge. And he's just been a really great role model for me.
Why did you decide to get into politics?
I was invited. I was asked. I would go to the Capitol and try to talk with legislators about education policy, and I wasn't really getting anywhere. And I always tell this. I always tell this story. You know, on Facebook, it'll say suggested friends, and at the time. Steve House was the chair of the Colorado GOP. His name kept coming across my Facebook, and I said, I'm going to send this guy a Facebook message and see if I get a response. He responded and said, sure, I'd love to meet with you. And so when I spoke with him about some of the roadblocks, we just started developing a friendship. And then one day he said, you know, you should run for CU Regent. And I said, what's a regent? Because I was not involved in politics at all. And when I learned what a regent is, I thought that's a really great place for me to get involved in politics. So I announced in the fall of 2019, and then we all know COVID hit in 2020, and I ran through my first assembly on the internet, got enough votes to get through the assembly, got my name on the ballot. I didn't win my primary, but what I did do is I stayed involved, and I helped the candidates all the way down the ballot to get elected. So that was the time John Kellner was running, several of our commissioners, President Trump at the time was running. So I just campaigned for every single candidate, and we had some victories in Douglas County specifically. And then Commissioner Thomas appointed me to the Planning Commission in January of 21. And about that time, that's when Steve said, you should run for vice chair of the Colorado GOP. And I honestly, I said, I don't think anybody would vote for me. I don't think I could win an election like that. And he said, no, Priscilla, you're exactly the kind of person we need in the party. You're a fresh face. Just get involved and try. And the rest is history. So,
what happened? I mean, Joseph Heller had that great line, something happened. What happened this last year and a half?
Well, I did serve my first 2 years with KBB, Christy Burton Brown, and went all over the state and spoke to folks in all 64 counties.
What did you learn
so much
by doing that?
Well, I learned that we have very different views across the state, and there are very different needs in rural Colorado, suburban Colorado, urban Colorado. I've learned that I don't like to make people wrong. People have things that are really important to them, their priorities. And we can address all of the issues. If people are really concerned about certain issues, we can create a committee and get a group of people together and then, speak with our legislators. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is to get candidates elected.
What I watched, from inside and outside, what Darren just said is true. He said, how can I help you? What do you need? The Republican Party, oh my God, the Civil War and the insanity that happened inside of the Republican Party are light years away from what Darren said got him elected. And you were involved in those fights. And the fights continue. Lawsuits have been filed. I mean, there's no give. Talk to that.
Well, remember, we are the most independently minded folks on the planet. As we have a very, very strong opinions about things, but a lot of times it's the people who are the most passionate who approach things in a very loud way, but that doesn't necessarily mean across the state everyone agrees with the loudest voices. And so that is what people need to understand is, yes, you and I know folks that are very passionate and they're forward speaking and they're on Facebook.
That's a nice thing to say. They're nuts. I mean, they're nuts.
Well, I think there's a lid for every pot. That's what I say, and there's a way for us to make sure.
There's a better way to say that. My father said
my
it.
approach. Well, you know, my approach is very different in how I try to listen as an educator. It's what I do every single day.
Yeah.
Is you have a big tent. You've got students coming from all over the world, different thoughts
You
and
had
feelings.
people standing in the backs of pickup trucks across the street from actually backed up to the Republican Party headquarters, calling women names.
Right, and that's not appropriate. We don't accept that, and we call it out because that's not how we speak to each other. We have to be respectful and honoring to one another. And, you know, so that type of behavior can't continue because it's offensive and it turns people off.
Weren't they all just at the convention together?
Well, there was
Same
a mix
people.
of folks. I mean, there are a lot of things that people thought would have taken place that didn't take place at that meeting. So it goes to show that just because you're the loudest voice doesn't necessarily mean you encompass the majority of the thoughts and feelings.
Do you go near any of this stuff? Are you smart enough to stay away?
I'm involved. I mean, I'm involved in the Republican politics. I'm involved in the Douglas County Republican Party. You know, I'm hopeful for the future. I hope that Republicans can stop attacking other Republicans because
What do you think is in the center of that, or why is that taking place?
I don't know. I've been involved in Republican politics for 25 years. So long before I ran for office, I was a precinct person, district captain. And what I saw is a shift from, we didn't always disagree on all of the issues all the time, but the visceral attacking that's taking place now is really turning people off. And we have got to come together. You know, even after I won my primary, there were still people that said, I refuse to vote.
I remember that.
I refused to vote for Weekly, or they were going to try and undervote me just so they could recall me. And it wasn't serving us well because I'll tell you, my unaffiliated opponent who is running on a Democrat ticket, he was banking on that. He was hoping that was going to come to fruition so he could steal the seat. And fortunately, that didn't happen. I won the general election by a landslide. But again, I stayed positive. I never went on the attack. I never attacked any other candidates for public office. I just won on what I brought to the table. We've got to get back to that. And we used to be that way as a party. We used to be that way in the Douglas County Republican Party. We got behind whatever candidate won that primary, and it never got ugly. Now it's getting ugly in public. And the Democrats are laughing all the way to public office.
Been saying it for years. That the Republican, there was an old line actually was said in the 30s that the Democratic Party was a firing squad in a circle. And the Republican Party is beyond a firing squad in a circle. I mean, the stuff that I listen to and hear, and people send me messages. How do you wade through that now? And I mean, you're mine. I love you. I want to see you win.
I talk to folks every day who are extremely positive and hopeful. They're, again, not the loudest voices, but they have a lot of influence in their circle. And so there are folks that are committed to the platform and our principles and our values as conservatives, but you won't hear them go on the attack. What they'll do is they'll have their
afraid.
Groups. Well,
no, they truly are. I mean,
there may be some that are afraid, and there's some that say, you know what, that's not the ecosystem I want to surround myself and be in. So I'm going to let them do what they're going to do, and then I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and I'm going to wait until the appropriate time for us to now reorganize. And so I think we do have folks that are active in the party. I'm a precinct committee person as well, that are still behind the scenes working and supporting candidates, donating to organizations that are doing great work with policy, but they're just not getting involved in party politics that have turned negative. They want to stay positive and hopeful. And they're folks with great faith. And I think we're going to be okay, but we, at voices like ours with the sheriff,
well, that's why
we have to continue to say, this is our vision for the party that we put the jersey on for. This is what we want to see.
that's why I invited the both of you here, because you are examples of, you know, how it could be done, or in your case, you did it, but we have this insanity that I listen to on radio shows, or I watch appearances on TV, or I read people's position papers, and there's a civil war inside of the Republican Party. The party's broke. Party name and money. Now I realize that's it's not your job title, but you certainly have opinions. Democrats, the Polis alone, just his money, but the party's broke. You have no paid employees.
We've got to do a better job of marketing the Republican Party on the principles that we stand for. I think the average citizen, obviously citizen are going to vary.
Darren's so turned off.
Yes, they are. They're tired of it. If you look at social media on political pages and things like that, you know, the likes or the interaction, it's considering how many people are out there, there's hardly anybody even paying attention anymore, because they're so turned off by politics. And I firmly believe that we are allowing others to define the Republican Party. They're trying to paint us into a corner of, that we're a bunch of far right nuts, and we're not. We've got to get back to basics. We got to get back to fundamentals. When I was running for public office, when I was running for sheriff's office, I told everybody I was going to get us back to basics of crime fighting. And that's what people want to hear. They don't want to hear the fluff anymore. So let's get back to basics of the Republican Party. What do we stand for? You know, I've been a Republican my whole life. I couldn't wait till I could register to vote to vote Republican. You know, I grew up admiring Ronald Reagan and his principles and what he stood for and his leadership. And where did that all go? You know, that's gone away.
This has been something to talk about on talk radio shows, but I personally believe, I don't think the Republican Party would want Ronald Reagan today. This Republican Party would reject Ronald Reagan, just like a modern Democrat, or they would reject Jack Kennedy. And Jack Kennedy would not fit as a modern Democrat. Ronald Reagan, he wouldn't fit as a modern Republican, given the insanity of the Trump people. And I'm sorry, it's just the truth. And so until you get past that, the stench of this last 2.5, 3 years, and that's what the internal fight is. And I've witnessed it. I've been around these people. I know who they are. And you're going nowhere. I mean, I know, and I believe you'll win this election. I sure hope you'll win this election, because you do represent that part of the party that doesn't, I don't know, it's not non-existent, because here's proof right here. You know, you won.
No, you're right, but we've got to change our course of action quickly. I'm the last Republican sheriff in the Denver metro area.
I was going to bring that up.
I'm the last one. So it's me in the Denver metro area. It's Joe Roybal in El Paso County, but we're not winning these races despite the rhetoric that we're putting out there.
Steve Reams is a very good friend.
Okay, very good. Yeah. But it's
Reams will tell you.
It's very frustrating to see. I was born and raised in Southeast Denver, and to kind of see what has transpired over the years, and the fact that I am the last. We have to see the writing on the wall that what's happening is not working, and we need to be more positive. We need to run on principle.
I agree.
No, I mean, but you witnessed it statewide. And there were some lunatics that were actually running for office, or attempting to run for office in the Republican Party, and they they were given the blessing of many of the power brokers in the party.
We need to know our numbers. Well, we had fewer folks that could be delegates to the assembly this last election. Our numbers are going down. So really great folks who've been involved as volunteers in our party were not able to be a part of the voting body. And that's an issue. And what we want to do is encourage folks to make sure that they cast a vote.
But how do you bring
elections.
them in? We've done a lot. I mean, we've not done radio together. We should begin to do it together. You've done a lot of radio with me. How do you? I guess how do you sell the Republican Party in Colorado?
Well, my approach is a lot of personal conversations.
Yeah.
I won a lot of people over. It's just the best way is to sit down with folks, because folks behind a keyboard, they'll say whatever.
Oh.
But when you're face to face with them, or you're having a conversation with them, then you can actually have a dialogue that's productive. It takes a lot of time, but it's the most effective thing. Sheriff Weekly said, going door to door and talking with folks and hearing from them, it means the world, and that's how we change it. And
Do you like doing it? Do you like campaigning?
I love campaigning. I love it.
I hated it, but I love going door to door. So again, with my candidacy and my running for office, as brutal and as ugly as it got, I mean, I would literally.
It got rough and Douglas.
It did.
Yeah,
it got ugly. I think my.
How do you personally deal with it?
It's tough. You know, my wife really helped me through the process. Perseverance, because I truly believe I was born to do this job. I truly believe God put me in this place at this time to be in this position. But I would literally wake up, look at the ceiling in my bedroom. I'm like, okay, one more day down, all the way to June 28th to the primary. And it was tough. And you literally, I know it's a figure of speech, but you literally have to get through it one day at a time.
Yeah.
And you have to start fresh with fresh energy. And that's what I love about Priscilla. She brings fresh, positive energy. Everywhere she goes, she lights up a room, and she's fantastic. That's exactly what politics needs. That's exactly what Douglas County politics needs, is somebody with that fresh perspective, a positive can-do attitude. She's fantastic, and she's going to do amazing things.
How do you sell the party? How do you take the principles that you two represent so well, by the way, and how do you tell voters, or I don't want to use the word, well, I'll just leave it at that. How do you tell voters?
Well, I mean, you look at the data. There are surveys where you ask people what's on your radar, what's most important to you, what are you concerned about? As we know in Colorado and Douglas County specifically, crime is at the top.
It is.
People, and safety. People want to feel safe. School safety is really, really important. And shout out to the Castillos, because the STEM shooting really changed the way we talk about school safety in Douglas County specifically. I teach in Denver. We had the East High School shootings with our deans. And I've been really blessed to be on the Denver Police Chiefs Community Advisory Board, on the Superintendent's School Advisory Board in Denver Public Schools, and talking frequently with Sheriff Weekly about what is my role and how can I use my voice to make sure people feel safe, number one. And, people are looking at transportation. They're concerned about that. They're concerned about affordability with the rise of our mortgages and taxes, and vote no on Proposition HH. I had to throw that in there because that is going to hurt a lot of seniors and a lot of people on fixed incomes. People want to make sure that they have affordable and safe drinking water. There's so many issues that people are looking at that we need to focus on. The party politics and the fighting and the nastiness, that is not part of the conversation, because that doesn't move the needle. That doesn't impact somebody's life. So we're going to focus on the things that people care about and then talk about solutions.
I believed in watching this last race that inside the Republican Party, this group of people would rather lose than have certain people win. That they would, it's called Götterdämmerung, the twilight of the gods. They bring it down upon themselves, and that they would have rather, and indeed got their way. There were a woman running for governor. They were so opposed. They were more opposed to her than the Polish people were. And they wanted her to lose. And they campaigned. People attempted to undercut you. I mean, I watched it. And that's until part of this ends, which I don't see it. There's no foreseeable end to it. Then the party's going to stall. I mean, people like you guys, but on a statewide basis, U.S. senators, I don't know, you guys. You have to show me the way.
Well, the message is we can't defend a vote that's not cast. And so we must, if we're going to change the laws, we need to change the lawmakers. A lot of the things that are happening in Colorado that Republicans don't like are because the legislature voted for that. We are outnumbered. We are a super minority in the state legislature. So we need to elect a majority of Republicans in order to change some of these laws. And so that's the message that we need to give to every Republican in Colorado.
Take the last comment. We've been here talking about the party and the future, and just yourself in terms of what you're seeing. A comment.
Campaign on principle. Yeah. Be positive. One vote at a time. We can turn the party around. We can turn things around if we run on principle. We absolutely can. We have got to stop the infighting with the party. That doesn't mean we can't disagree on some issues, but we have to back the candidates that win the primary and unify as a party behind them. If we don't, we are going to continue to lose seats. I will tell you that I have lost count how many people have come up to me over the last 8 months and said, "Sheriff, I was wrong about you. I was absolutely wrong about you," because they just assumed I was more of the same of the previous sheriff. And crime is down in Douglas County. Motor vehicle theft is down. Burglaries are down. Trespass to vehicles are down. Why? Because I ran on getting back to basics, on the principles of what matters in our community, and I'm making a difference in my office. That's what people want to hear.
Comments?
I would love everybody's support. I mean, Sheriff Weekly's right. He's an example to me as a candidate. He did it, and I've watched and followed, and I think he did it the right way. I would love everyone's support. It's PriscillaForDougCo.com. And if someone wants to know where I stand on some of these social, local issues, and we do have social pressures as well, and where I stand as a conservative, feel free to give me a call. We'll have coffee.
Website.
Priscilla, Priscilla, we spell it out, FOR, DougCo.com.
These are wonderful examples of how the state could be. It isn't, but it could be. Both remarkable young people. Saturday, I get to do the radio show 9 to noon. So I'm reading in the Atlantic magazine, 40 million Americans have quit going to church. Why? I mean, if you're one of them, or what do you think the reasons are? But 40 million Americans in a very short time period have ceased going to church, temple, whatever. You put the building on it, you put the faith on it, you put the religion on it. 40 million people. Why? Why are they quitting? I see a Saturday morning, 9 o'clock. Hey, Darren, thanks, man. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And you, and to Mark Crowley for putting all of this together. I see you the next time on the shoot. Thanks, you guys.